Hello there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brooke. Thank you for joining. If you're new here, this is a channel where I talk about houseplants and do DIYs on my shorts. So take a minute and subscribe to my channel. That way you can be up to date on all my latest videos. You can also follow me on Instagram as the cat knocks over this plant because I've been posting on there more consistently, I would say. So if you want to check that out, you can. If you are a recurring viewer, welcome back. Thanks so much for joining. So if you aren't new here, you will know that this Anthurium Queen Anthurium is somewhat newer of a plant in my collection, and it was a wishlist plant. And so I have already repotted it once since getting it. I got this in Florida at Native Plant Shop in Cocoa Beach, and it's beautiful. I love it. I was so excited to see it in person because these plants are very uncommon, and it has done really well so far in my care. But I have started to notice that this leaf specifically is getting a lot of yellow spots, which is a sign of that it's root bound. And so I already knew that. I kind of researched Anthurium queens a lot because, again, it was a wish list plant that I had wanted for a very long time because, I mean, look at these leaves. Like, this is massive, and they're just so unique and so beautiful. So after a lot of research, they are, of course, a typical like Anthurium. They have a little bit of a needy side. And so the needy side of the queens is that they are very particular on soil and water and being root bound. So they do not like to be root bound. And so again, I have already repotted this up one size, and I can see roots coming out of the bottom here. And so it's already time to repot it again, which is crazy to me because I didn't repot this long ago and it still has not pushed out a new leaf. It's got a new growth point that's like just starting to like really form and start to push out the new leaf, but nothing yet. And so it's so surprising to me that the root system is already grown so much and it needs to be repotted. And so these are, I would say, a fast root grower, not a fast foliage grower, which obviously they are not a fast foliage grower because look how massive their leaves are. And so typically with larger form of leaves that you have on your plant, it takes a longer time to grow them. So like my Thai constellation, it's just an insanely slow grower, but that is because the leaves are massive. And so this guy is the same way. So I want to repot it immediately because, again, this yellowing is not good. It's stressing the plant out. I really don't want to lose this leaf. Didn't look great to begin with, obviously. It's really started to yellow and turn, and so I really don't want to lose it. I was actually on Instagram yesterday, and I can't even think, Mana Monstera posted a video of her Anthurium, and it was doing the same thing, yellowing spots on the back and everything. She's like, it's a sign of repotting, and it just triggered me, and I was like, yeah, I need to repot it. But this pot is already so like semi-large. It's honestly one of the largest plants I have in my collection, like pot-wise. Like, I guess obviously my Monsteras are really large, but it's just like a really large, awkward plant. Like, it makes sense for those to have a large pot because they're a large plant. It doesn't make sense for a 2-leaf plant to have such a large pot, but it is, I would say, also my Mammy Eye has a really large pot. But anyways, I had to go to the store, and it was either get a really large, like, you know, opening pot, still shallow, or get a okay sized opening with a really long pot. And so that's what I decided to do because I have a moss pole in this as well, and it needs a little bit more depth. And again, I just didn't want to get a like huge pot, and because I don't have anywhere to put it. This sits like right next to my Mammy Eye right here in that blank spot. And I really don't want to put this down anywhere that my children can get it. I'm sorry, but they pull on plants, and you know, I have a 1-year-old, so he pulls on plants and touches them, which is fine. I'm okay with. But this is one plant that I'm not okay with them touching. And so it needs to have a high seat, and there's just no high seats. I say high seats in this house besides the shelving unit. And so I think just the depth of this one will be better because you can see here, it's a very big difference, but the depth of it will be better for this. And I am also hoping to not repot this again because I have added a moss pole to it. which will act as an extension of the pot. And so I have sphagnum moss in here. I keep it moist, and it already has an aerial root forming at the base of it. It actually has two out now that I looked at it. And so I'm hoping that once those grow into this, this can be like a second pot basically, and it will grow into this and take nutrients out of it, because you can still water it and what did I just think about? Fertilize it. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to repot this guy. And I also have two other ones to repot. I went to Suburban Plants. It's in Mesquite, and I always go there and visit them because I needed to get the pot. And I just stopped by their plant section because I saw that they had a new shipment of plants. And I found these. I found this. I was so excited. So this is a Philodendron El Choco Red, which if you have been here a while and you have seen my video about like plants that I wish to own, basically, this was on it. And so I was really excited to see these, and she gave me a really good price on them. And so I was very happy about it, and I got two. Yeah, I did it. I did it because again, when I heard what she was going to be so generous to give it to me for, I was like, yes, I'm going to get two of them. So this one has a ton of new growth on it here and here, like under here in this leaf. And then this one also has a lot of new growth. So it has this leaf coming out here, and then all of this new growth right here below it. So these are very beautiful plants. They have very red backings. And so I have a lot of velvet plants. I love to collect philodendron. I think that they are beautiful, normally easy to care for plants. And I love the velvet plants. So I have a Micans, which I don't love, honestly. Just its growth pattern is not my favorite. And then I have a Melanochrysum, which I love the Melanochrysum. However, it requires extreme humidity. Now, El Choco Red, I have read that people have an easier time growing these than the Melanochrysum. And so I'm hoping that it will be that way. It will be so. But that's kind of why I was like, okay, I'll get two of them as well, because I'm going to put one in my greenhouse cabinet. If you haven't seen that video, I put a greenhouse out in my garage, and I'm going to keep one in an indoor setting and see how they do and like compare the two, just to see what it prefers. So got those two. I'm going to repot those because I am using my new mix. So I have a new mix on my Etsy shop. You can purchase it, and so it's in 1 gallon bags. I'll show you what it looks like. It's in 1 gallon bags, so you can purchase it on my Amazon. You can purchase it on my Etsy, and so I'll link it below. But this is what I have been slowly repotting all of my plants into. I actually think I have a lot more plants now in this than my makeshift soil that I was using from like Home Depot and just putting it together myself. So this is a soilless mix. So it does not have soil in it, obviously soilless, but it has other great mediums in it. Coconut chips, pumice, pine bark, leca, New Zealand tree fern, vermiculite, and perlite. And so it has a little bit of moisture retention with the vermiculite and the fern, the tree fern fiber. And then, of course, like cocoa chips and leca, that will all hold water and moisture. There are other soil mixes out on the market, obviously. There's tons. And they would either be like too quick draining for me, and I would have to be watering my plants all the time, or holding on to too much moisture. And so I felt like this is a perfect balance. So that's why I've created this. So yes, again, you can get this, but it's what I'm going to be using to repot these. My Anthurium is already in that mix and has been doing great with it. So I'm just adding to it. So let's get started. I realized I don't really have a table or anything to put this on. So I'm just going to put this in, I guess, the diaper box here. What I do is I fill up the bottom portion with my mix, and then I will add my plants into it. So I guess I can show you, but it's going to be a really great view. But this is my empty pot. I'm just going to fill the bottom. I'm just going to put some in there. And then I'm going to still use the soil or like the mix from this, because there's nothing wrong with this mix. There's nothing wrong like with reusing it. And so let me see here. I need to add a little bit more. if you do purchase this mix, just make sure to like dump it out, mix it together, because all the little stuff like the vermiculite and the perlite, the pumice tends to settle at the bottom or the top. So I'm going to just take this moss pole out. Whenever I make moss poles, I always leave the bottom like 2 inches, which obviously this has come out, but free. So that way the soil or mix that I'm using can go into the bottom. Oh, this guy was like, yep. So you can see that this was, hold on, trying to not. This guy was pretty root bound. Like it's perfectly formed to the pot and to the pole. So definitely going to take it out, place it in here. It's going to be better. And I'm also, it started to root and I can see a lot of roots forming into that pole. And actually, yeah, another aerial root. So I'm going to just slightly pull these down so I can get this as close to the pole as possible like that. So we'll continue on now. I do fertilize this guy with every watering because it has such large leaves. It needs a good fertilizer. Normally with this mix, I can get like multiple 4-inch pots, 6-inch pot, 8-inch pot. I can do quite a few plants with it. Okay. So now we have that. I'm trying to push this as close to the moss pole as possible. And then I'll give it a good watering, but that's good. This is the new pot. It is massive. So that is it. It's in there. I will use a clip and probably clip these leaves to the moss pole. So that way it really pushes those aerial roots in. I realized I didn't put the moss pole pretty side. Whatever. But anyways, so that way it will really connect with the moss pole. Well, the light connect with the moss pole. Because if you have it so far away from your moss pole, it's going to take forever for the aerial roots to get into. So you really want to make sure that you are planting your plant as close to the moss pole as possible. That way you are not waiting and it is getting utilized. That guy is done and he's going to sit back up here. I'll put him back. I'm actually just going to do one of these. I forgot. So since I'm going to put it in my greenhouse, I will keep one in the just general soil mix, because that's the thing is with this soil mix, it does dry out faster. So if you have a higher humidity situation and a like hotter situation, your plants will dry out faster. This is great for an indoor setting where it's not super humid and it's not super hot. And that way it can retain the moisture, but it's not just sitting stagnant in just wet soil. And so I have a whole video about why I am using the soil mix and stuff. I'll link it also. But yes, this is not meant for an outdoor setting because you are going to be watering your plants often then. And you can use it in your greenhouse. You're just going to be watering it probably more frequently. And so again, I don't want to water it more frequently. And so I'm just going to keep it in this. This is just looks to me, and it always usually is from a nursery, a peat moss mix, because peat moss has a high retention or water retention. And of course, the nursery is going to use that because they're not watering their plants every day. But I think I'm going to repot this one here. This one this one has like a nice new leaf coming out. I'll put this one in my greenhouse. And then this one is pretty full. I'm going to put this one inside and I will use just normal pot. Actually, I'll look at the root system, but typically with these guys, they don't have the greatest root system. And so I can also tell that this is in a pod. This is in a grow pod, but we'll see the root system. And then if I need to size up, I will. But no, actually, it's okay. I'm not going to repot up, but I'll show it to you. I have to get as much soil like of this peat moss off as possible in order to repot it into my mix, because I don't want any of this peat moss in my mix. Peat moss also is just like a high return for fungus gnats. And that's also why I started using this mix, is because I don't want to deal with fungus gnats. So it's a great way to combat that, because fungus gnats want to be in a boggy situation where there is a lot of moisture. And so when you have a like quick draining soil. There is no kind of time for fungus gnats to lay eggs and hatch and all of that. So they just don't, or if they do, they die quickly. And so I haven't dealt with fungus gnats. Actually, my husband made a comment the other day because we were in a fungus gnat season for some reason, which is normal also in this setting. We live in Texas. And so it's, I think, very common for them because I was going to people's houses who didn't have plants and was experiencing fungus gnats. So I didn't feel so bad. But he just made a comment the other day that he hadn't seen any and I hadn't seen any either. So all that to say, it can help you with that issue. It also is harder to overwater your plants because of the fast draining soil and the parts of it that don't hold on to, moisture. So I put a pink princess cutting in a plant. What am I saying? I potted up a pink princess cutting, or actually it was a plant at that time, and gave it to my mom and put it in this soil mix because I'm like, you could water this every day probably. And she has what does she have? She has bay windows that she put it in. But I'm like, you could honestly probably water this every day and not overwater your plant because it's receiving such high light and it's in a hot space. So it's perfect for that situation. So I think that's all I'm going to do. That's enough of the soil mixture off of there to plant it into mine. But this is it. Its root system, isn't very big, so I will put it back in the 4-inch pot. And I am planting it in terracotta. I've been doing that. Usually I just do plastic pots with a lot of drainage because that's, it's great. But again, that's when I was using a soil mixture. And so I needed those extra drainage holes. And so now that I've been using my potting mix, I've just been planting into straight terracotta pots, and I haven't really experienced any issues. Honestly, my only issue is with my Monstera Stanleyana. It really likes to be well watered, and it is constantly running out of water, which can mean it needs to be repotted, needs to be potted up. So if you are experiencing that too, where you are having to water your plant a lot, you need to check the roots because it could just be that it's not enough soil to root ratio and you need to repot it. So I'm just going to pot this guy in here like that. I'm so excited about this guy. And honestly, I want to add it to a grow pole too, but I'm not going to do that today. I don't really have the patience, and it's so small, and these are tissue culture plants. And so when I get tissue culture plants, and specifically like ones that are supposed to climb and such, like it takes a lot longer for them to form aerial roots and to grow like properly. And so I'm just going to be patient and wait for this guy to start growing and maturing in the way it should, because typically this isn't what you would see. It doesn't grow like this. Like there are multiple plants that I could actually technically separate out of here and plant separately, and then just put one of them on a grow pole. But anyways, that will be for later. This guy, I'm so excited because like their leaves are so beautiful and just lush, and the red backings, like you could already see the red backing. So it's so beautiful, such a beautiful plant. I'm really excited about these guys. I hope they do well. I don't want spider mites. That's what I don't want. But I'm really excited. These leaves are like a pillowy softness, and I love them. So we'll see. I just need to give them a good water. But yeah, that was it. So if you are interested in the soil, I'll link it below. You can also check out some of my old videos where I talk about why I switched to this. But otherwise, that was my update on these guys, and we will see you next time.